Hey guys, Manfred Hartman here with another episode of Vapor Trails. Today we are battling in the skies over Norway, and I am flying the Focke-Wulf 190 D13, or Dora as it is affectionately called. Now, the reason I wanted to share this video with you is, while the match was one of the most gratifying that I've had in War Thunder, as I win a 3-on-1 engagement to score ace in a day, it was not won by tactics and skillful flying alone. No, this match was actually a very good showcase for how the metagame can greatly influence the outcome of a match in War Thunder. I say metagame because I'm referring to the circumstances surrounding the match rather than the play of any one individual player. I had difficulty trying to think of a catchy title for this video. It could have easily been use the environment to your advantage, because as you can see it is dusk and the low light conditions definitely come into play in this match. Another one was crew skills make the difference, because I believe I may not have survived at all if it weren't for the fact that my crew skill was maxed, allowing me to spot the dot under these adverse lighting conditions. It also could have been never give up, because in the middle of this match, I actually run dry on ammo with 3 enemies on my 6, and yet I find a way to elude them and eventually win the day. But in the end, I decide to make this a part of my Focke-Wulf 190 guide and just make that guide a trilogy, because this match does heavily rely on energy fighting tactics to win the day in close quarters engagements. And this is driven by the limitations of poor visibility, being as it is dusk, and that demands close quarters fighting, because you can't see your enemy very well. The Focke-Wulf 190 doesn't really excel at close quarters energy fighting, but this is a situation where we don't have much choice. And so you could really consider this entire episode another segment of course, but sometimes. In this case, I suppose it would be, of course the Dora is not an energy fighter, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Now, I hope you'll bear with me because this match ends up being quite a lengthy one. It actually took almost 40 minutes in total, but I have pretty aggressively shrunk down the time so that it is much easier to watch. Anyway, let's skip ahead to the next engagement. So we've climbed out to 7,000 meters, which is an altitude that the D13 really excels at, and this is where those crew skills start to come into play. We've managed to spot the dot of an aircraft below us, and we are trying to create a dive angle here to intercept it. And there it pops up, and we're able to red box it. Now it appears that this pilot did not even see us coming. Either he was AFK or perhaps he didn't realize that we were even there, so that was a very easy first kill, as we just tear him apart before he even realizes we were there. You'll note that the first thing I do after that dive is point my nose straight back into the air and gain back that altitude that I lost. Once again, we need that energy, we need that altitude advantage when we're flying the 190s. I know I harp on that, but it's really important. Now, we take a look below us. I see a dot on my radar, and we notice that F8F is giving one of our fellow Doras fits below us, so we're just going to dive in and lend him some assistance. Now, this Dora pilot does exactly the right thing. He pulls into the vertical, which causes the Bearcat, who's target locked, to pull up with him and exposes him to our guns, Leroy Brown and myself. Unfortunately, I screw the pooch here and don't get a clean shot on that Bearcat, but I do not turn with him. I go straight back into the vertical to preserve my energy, and it's a darn good thing because there's a Bearcat diving on me. Fortunately, I have an energy advantage, and at this altitude, there's no way he's going to keep up with the Dora in a sustained climb. He realizes this and eventually pulls away, but I'm going to let my speed bleed down a little bit more before I go into a loop. Now, normally I would not actually go into this loop, I would continue flying straight, but as visibility is low, and I have a teammate below me who is in trouble, I need to get back into the fight as quickly as possible, and that was the best way to do it and preserve as much energy as I could. So here we are once again diving on this F8F. Now there are two F8Fs below me, one of them behind the 190, as you can see there, firing tracers at him. So I want to get into a position to take at least one of them out. As I come out of the blackout, I see that there's actually three F8Fs here. Fortunately, we take one by surprise. He completely doesn't see us coming, and we knock him out for our second kill. As we come out of the dive, we notice that we have a Tempest on our 6, but fortunately we have the energy advantage on him, so we just keep our nose pointed to the sky. Unfortunately, we were unable to save Kirby Air. He was taken down by one of the F8Fs that were in that engagement, but we do have an energy advantage on this Tempest behind us, and I was thinking about engaging in some energy fighting tactics to perhaps abuse this energy advantage on him. And right as I was deciding on how to engage him, however, I noticed that Leroy Brown is diving in from behind, and so I decide here to see if I can't bait this Tempest for his guns. Once we have created a little bit of separation, we're going to put our nose to the sky and begin a high bank, utilizing our flaps to control ourselves at slow speed. You'll see I have initiated my landing flaps that create quite a lot of lift, and that also helps us to remain stable while we're making this sort of banking hammerhead turn to get on this Tempest 6. Just cut the engine a little bit to tighten the turn, and we take our flaps off. Now this Tempest did the exact right thing. He recognized the fact that he had one 190 behind him and one above him, and so he decided not to follow me in that maneuver and expose himself to Leroy's guns. Unfortunately, that means that I have bled off a lot of speed and energy, which means that this Tempest can now pull away from me if he so chooses, which he appears to be doing. So let's speed up a little bit to the next engagement, as it takes a little bit of time to catch up to him. As you can see at this point, I've decided to go into a gentle climb as I was pursuing this player because I was worried about his teammates following us. But I notice his dot go into a steep dive, and so I begin my dive to pursue him. And this is really where the cruise skill comes into play. I'm not sure if this player knows how closely I'm able to follow him in this dive, but we clearly have the advantage in a dive. Take a few speculative shots here, just trying to get the range, get a solid hit there. Definitely knows that we're here, but he's not able to outrun us. Unfortunately, my shooting is just abysmal here. I cannot seem to find my lead, and he is juking quite successfully, using negative Gs and positive Gs to throw off my aim. But really this shooting is just inexcusable on my part. Kudos also have to go to this pilot Mari here for this display of defensive flying. He has extended this engagement to the point where I have blown all of my altitude and a lot of my energy and perhaps half of my ammunition loadout trying to kill him, and he is still flying. So I was pretty frustrated at this point in the match. It appears that I have the energy advantage on this Tempest. I'm just waiting for the right opportunity to get a shot in, and here I go. I blow the last of my ammo for a solid hit, which is unfortunate because right there, if I just had one more burst in the guns, that would have been a definite kill. But my guns were dry and they were clicking as I got him in my crosshairs right there at the end. I can't tell you how frustrating that feeling is, Fortunately, however, our teammate is in a position to take advantage of this Tempest's low energy state and just knocks him out in one pass. So kudos to Leroy Brown there, and shame on me for that poor display of marksmanship. There's absolutely no time to rest on our laurels because just as I point my nose towards the runway, I get tracer fire coming in from behind. Very lucky to survive that. He did not pop up on my radar until I saw the tracer going past my tail, and so now I'm in a pretty desperate situation. There's a Tempest here with an energy advantage on me, and I'm out of ammo. So I decide to try to perhaps bait this Tempest. I keep a high angle so that I will slow myself down and keep him interested in me. And once he turns towards me, I'm going to bank underneath him to try and present him for Leroy's gun. So now it appears he is coming towards me as I see his range dropping, but he's actually going for Leroy. And as I make my bank, I notice that there's another enemy right below me, so I need to get out of this area as soon as possible. There's no way I can help Leroy at this point. I have no guns, and I believe that that enemy pilot knows it. He knows that I'm not a threat, which is why he's not going for me. And unfortunately, right there, Hackett takes out Leroy Brown, which is our last remaining teammate. So now we have at least 2 enemies on our 6. There's a third one that is still alive, but I'm not sure exactly where he is. They know exactly where I am, and they can even red box me at this distance, and I have no ammo. So it seems as if there's absolutely no way that I can possibly win this match, except for the fact that it's dusk. And I decide to take advantage of the fact that they probably do not have max crews, and it's going to be very difficult for them to spot the dot at low altitude in these lighting conditions. So right now, all I'm trying to do is get separation. And that powerful Dora 190 engine is really coming to play here. It's allowing me to get some separation on these Bearcats. I'm going into a slight climb. I want them to think that I still have some ammunition in case maybe they're ambiguous on that, and make it seem like I'm climbing to be a threat to them. But in actuality, I'm just trying to get some distance. And as you can see behind us, it appears that our ploy has worked, because one of those dots has climbed up into space, giving up all of his forward speed to do so. So I'm going to level out a little bit and pick up even more speed, and I'm thinking at this point that I'm going to dive down and go into one of these fjords and try to slip my way back to base without them noticing. Now this process takes a little bit of time to complete, so I'm going to speed it up in deference to your time. But I want you to note how I use the features of the land to avoid detection in these low light conditions. So here we are approaching the runway, and I can hear the anti-aircraft guns firing, but I cannot see any dots in the sky. I'm going to have to land anyway because I absolutely need ammunition. And as you can see here, I'm trying to come in at as low a speed as possible, because for one, I do not have any cannons to break with, and I wouldn't use them even if I did, because the tracer fire would give me away. So the priority here is going to be come in at low speed, get stopped as quickly as possible, get rearmed as quickly as possible, and then take a very low angle of climb coming off of the runway so that we can get out from underneath these enemies as quickly as possible. So I've dropped my landing flaps, I've dropped my gear, and we're about to drop the engine to 0, and so that we can come in at just about 200 kilometers per hour. It's about stall speed, and we can brake quickly, and I'll do a neat little spin here to try and bleed off as much of my speed as quickly as possible and get that rearm timer going as quickly as possible. You can hear the anti-aircraft guns firing intermittently in the background, so I know that there's enemies right on top of me. I just can't see them. And this was an incredibly nerve-wracking 10 seconds, because I knew that at any point a red dot could pop up on my radar and strafe me out on the runway, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. But fortunately the timer expires, and we are able to get our throttle up to WEP in a hurry. So at this point, I'm trying to decide in which direction I want to go to. Once again, I'm not seeing any dots on my radar. I have no idea where the enemy is. I know they're close, however, so I decide to remain over land because it's a little bit harder to spot the dot over land. So once I get to takeoff speed, maintaining my low nap of the earth flight profile, and I pull off bank to the right because I just want to remain over land and not go over the water where I might be just a little bit easier to spot. As we clear the ridge, I notice a dot pop up on my radar, and oh my gosh, there's a bear cat right above me. And at this point, I figured I was dead meat. I have 500 kilometers per hour of speed on, but at that altitude, he should be able to dive down and catch me, even at this energy state. So I'm monitoring his progress, though, and I'm noticing that he's not diving on me. Could I have just escaped that unscathed? Did he not even see me? Wow, it appears to be the case, and, well, we're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm going to turn to an opposing angle from where he was last flying, and we're going to begin our climb. Go to 20 degrees and go into a sustained climb, which is one of the things that German planes do rather well. That, along with the low visibility conditions, are what really saved my bacon here. Now, I was quite grateful to have avoided that engagement, and the plan was to climb to the side in order to avoid detection, but the enemy has other ideas. They put blind hunt on me, which lights me up for every member of the opposing team. At this point, I don't have any choice but to continue flying in the opposite direction of the enemy and hope that my sustained climb advantage will keep them far enough away from me that I can reach altitude. And there again is the metagame coming into play, my sustained climb rate versus those bearcats. And this was a pretty tense moment for me, but it takes a while for me to get back to altitude, so let's speed up to the next engagement. So the blind hunt order has fallen off, and what I should have done was activate Avenger myself to find the enemy and spot them and attack them, but fortunately the enemy beats me to it. I was kicking myself because I actually do have an Avenger order, and now for the remainder of the match I will not be able to use it because you can only use it once per match. So now we're back in a position where the enemy can see me, but I cannot see them. So my only choice now is to continue a sustained climb and get to a higher altitude. And that's very fortunate because the D-13 actually excels at high altitude. That's where it is it's most powerful, it's most dangerous. So that's probably the best course of action for me anyway if I can't see where the enemy is. But anyway, let's speed up to the next engagement. So at this point we have climbed out to 8,000 meters, and I have managed to spot one of the remaining enemy players by his vapor trail. And I can also see his dot thanks to my fully maxed cruise skills, and I'm using the D-13's excellent high altitude performance to catch up to him. The plan is to hold fire for as long as possible and try to ambush him before he can spot me behind him. So we're just going to try to approach him very cautiously and carefully, and hopefully our aim will be true. I've set my convergence to 600 meters so I could reliably hit him at about a kilometer out or so, and we managed to get a solid critical hit on him, but it was very disappointing to see that he does not light on fire, and we do not end up getting the kill. So since this is the strongest player on the enemy team, we have to make sure that he goes down. Although it's difficult to see in the video, I'm able to track his movements based on his silhouette against the ground, and I'm just shooting a couple of speculative shots here, trying to get the range. I clearly have the energy advantage on him, so I'm not worried about catching up to him. But we are getting very close inside my convergence, so I was worried about that. Fortunately, though, we are able to just get a clip on his tail on the pass right there, and we severely damage his tail controls, and that actually ends up knocking him out of the fight. But as we look over our shoulder, we notice that there's a Tempest diving on us from behind. Fortunately, we have the energy advantage, however, and we just point our nose to the sky and try to get back as much altitude as possible. Now, what I notice here is that the range that he can red box me is very short, so I decide to go into this loop, which is an energy fighting tactic that I would normally never use in the D13, except for the fact that I'm counting on the idea that he can't see me. Unfortunately, I can't see him, and when I get to the apex of my loop, I lost track of him, and he ends up being behind me. So I've given up quite a bit of energy to try and spike him from above, but fortunately, I still have the energy advantage, and I'm just going to abuse the heck out of that. It's not a huge energy advantage, but it's enough that if I just point my nose to the sky and go into a stall, using my landing flaps to tighten that stall at the apex when I'm at low speed, that I'm going to be able to get the angle on him. Once again, I'm using his silhouette against the ground to track his movements, and once we come out of that maneuver, I am on his 6 with a slight energy advantage. We are both at low energy state, but mine is slightly higher than his, and I use that to just set him up and knock him down for my 3rd kill. Now, while getting that kill was incredibly gratifying, I'm a little bit worried here because that remaining Tempest that I got a critical on has had plenty of time to head back towards his runway, and I have no idea where the last remaining fighter is on the enemy team. So at this point, my only option is to head towards the runway and try to finish off that crippled Tempest either before he can land or just after he takes off. So that's what my plan is now. I noticed that my engine is running hot, however, so I take this opportunity to open up the radiator and bring back the throttle to try and cool it down. And of course, that's when I hear the enemy's engine, and I thought he was above me, but fortunately he's below me. So here we are once again in a dogfight. I've been caught flat-footed again, but I do have the energy advantage, and we're going to abuse the heck out of that. Once again, we are using our opponent's silhouette against the ground to track his movements, and I notice him cut underneath me, so that's going to give me a deflection shot opportunity. I set my sights just ahead of his aircraft, take a quick burst, and we snipe his pilot for our 4th kill. And so, at the conclusion of that 3-on-1 engagement, we have eliminated 2 enemy players and crippled a 3rd. That one remaining Tempest is probably limping his way back to his runway, so that's where we're going to head. Hopefully we'll be able to catch him as he takes off, because I don't believe that I'll be able to get there before he lands. But fortunately, I must have done enough damage that he was unable to safely land his craft, because in just a few moments I'll get credit for destroying his aircraft. And there it is. What a spectacular end to that match. 3-on-1 engagement, and we end up on top and scoring ace in a day. And boy, I was flying pretty high at this point. Anyway, that's the end of the match, guys, so let's go through to the results. So, the results for the match, we end up in 1st place on the team with 5 kills and 1 assist, earning our ace in the day. And we take home a whole boatload of awards and 160,000 silver lions, which is really not bad for a single match. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this, please click that like and subscribe button below, and remember, get high, stay high. That's the winning strategy.